Hello and welcome to this week's Wednesday upload. My name's Nicola if you're new here. If you're not, welcome back. This is Poppy. We are doing a section, it's not a fibro section this week, it's about ADHD. So a bit of backstory. Poppy was diagnosed how long ago with ADHD?
Last year.
Was it last year? But she's had it all her life. It's just that she was only just recently diagnosed with it. So at school you struggled, didn't you? Both schools. We tried to get Poppy extra help. We tried to talk to the SCN teachers. I mean, I worked at the school as well, so you'd think that I could get something done, but it wasn't as easy as that. You had testing for autism, didn't you? But that came back no, because they said
Yeah,
she
I'm
was
going to talk about that as well.
okay. She was socially interactive, and it didn't sort of come to anything until you started college, was it? And
Yeah.
then Poppy sort of realised from looking at all the different symptoms that she had that she came to me and said, I really do think I've got ADHD. So we went down the assessment route. It took a long time, but and lots of forms. We had to go to the previous secondary school to get them to fill out a form. We had to fill out forms. College had to fill out forms. So it isn't a quick process by any means. And now you're on medication, aren't you? So Poppy takes medication now to help.
Again, I'm going to talk about that.
Yeah. And it's just sort of knowing all these years that we knew there was something that we couldn't put our finger on, and I didn't know there was so much to ADHD that there is. So Poppy's going to talk to you a bit about how things affect you, and then I might jump in on some of it to join in. So do you want to start off?
Yeah, well, like you said, there's so much to ADHD that I think people don't realise. I think when people hear ADHD, they just think about hyperactivity and bouncing off walls and things like not being able to concentrate, which is a symptom, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot, ADHD is very complex, I think, and people don't really understand that. But yeah, I've got a few things I want to talk about with it that I find that I particularly struggle with. One of the biggest ones I think is hyperfixations. Now these are like when so anyone can have a hobby, can't they? Anyone, but typically people with ADHD, and I find myself I have found people jump from hobbies to hobbies a lot with ADHD. Not all the time, again, people are different all the time, aren't they? Not everyone's the same.
Yeah.
But a lot of people do jump from hobby to hobby, and they get very excited over it. An example, like when I was younger, I used to love collecting like marbles and rocks and things like that, and I'd put my whole money and effort into that until I got bored of it, and now it's like under my bed.
And rubbers.
There's so much that I can think of that I collect, that I used to collect, or like a hobby,
erasers, as you call them,
or just so many different things. And I think it's okay when you're younger, because I think a lot of parents like putting their children into hobbies anyway, like trying out different things. So it's difficult to tell then, I think, when you're younger, because a lot of kids that age do jump from hobby to hobby anyway. But now it's very hard, because a lot of people my age especially have like one or two set things that they're good at, whereas I haven't particularly found that for myself yet, or I felt like I haven't. Yeah, but I felt like I haven't yet.
Yeah.
And still, like, even with the drums, I get bored of it sometimes. Like, I go back to it, but people with ADHD can get very bored very quickly, but
lose interest.
Hyperfixations can last however long. It can last a week, a month, or like years. Like, it depends, but you know, it doesn't usually last when it is a hyperfixation, and it can affect your. Well, it can affect big decisions, because it's hard. Sometimes it's very hard to determine the difference between something that is a hyperfixation and something that you're generally interested in.
Like at the moment, you're liking your painting by numbers. Would you say you're hyperfixed on that, or would you say you just generally enjoy it?
I don't know, because
Or a bit of both.
I think as well, I like seeing, like anyone, I like seeing progress, but I like seeing it quickly. So with a painting, you can see the progress as you go along. So I think that's why I like it so much. But yeah, like when I spend like all day on it, that is when it becomes a hyperfixation. But when I spend like 1 or 2 hours on it, that's just when it is a normal hobby, you know. It's just finding that difference, I think. But yeah, that's one thing about hyperfixations. The social aspect of ADHD is also quite complex, because again, a lot of people think that ADHD means that you're very hyperactive, like, you know, you're fine with that aspect, but there's a lot more to it. There's times when I'm really excited for an event. Say we've got a family event, and I'm really excited for it, but when it comes to it, I sit there and I look like I'm really miserable, but I'm just very overwhelmed. And this leads to like the emotions of ADHD as well, because it's very hard sometimes for us to process them as well as other people do. And usually it talks to one specific emotion. So some people, you know, at a social event, if they're not feeling great about it, it could lead to sadness or, you know, something else. But mine, at the moment, it leads to frustration and anger, and that's usually what it all leads to. And yeah, and it gets difficult in social events, because when you're younger as well, you seem very easy and very like happy to be at events and things, because you are, you know, that's how it is when you're younger. But when you get older, you know, as well as you're maturing, your ADHD is also maturing. So it's also giving you almost that social battery for you to not be able to talk to anyone for a certain amount of time. And I think it's just making people aware who are in your life and who are close to you, that you're not sad, you're not angry at anyone, or you're not just being a grumpy teenager. You know, it is just generally that you maybe are a bit overwhelmed, or that you do need that little bit of a mental moment, as me and Jess like to call it.
Mental moment.
Just a mental moment, whether it's to yourself or in your safe space. But, you know, that's, you know, I mean, I'm still figuring out how to get through some of them, so.
Going on with the overactivity though, when you were younger, you were always on the go, weren't you?
Yeah.
Literally, she was always on the go. We had a trampoline in the old house, and she would spend so long on there, jumping around, pretending she was this, that and the other, and she was always having to do something. You couldn't sit still and watch a whole film, or...
No, and I still struggle with that. Like, unless I'm really into a film, or like I'm doing something else while I'm watching a film, I can't sit there and watch a whole film just flat out.
And you're like that with music as well. You keep changing to the next song before the
I love music, but a lot of the time, like, it gets to my favourite part and then I want the next song.
But like now, obviously Poppy's older and she's not going to start running around the house and the place, so you tend to with your leg, jiggle your leg a lot, don't you, up and down?
Yeah,
that's how it comes. Because when we went for her last hearing test, the doctor there said, oh, are you just super fidgety? And I said, no, she's got ADHD.
No, she asked if I was nervous, didn't she?
Yeah.
She was making me nervous, and I said, no, I don't even realise I do it a lot of the time.
No. So just going through the over movement, you know, the excessive movement there.
Yeah, again, your ADHD matures as you mature, and I think the biggest lie any doctor can tell you is that you will learn to deal with it, because maturing you know, is like your ADHD changing. So like when you're younger, you know, you could run a few laps and you're good to go, you know?
Yeah.
But now, that's not socially acceptable, is it? To just get up
No.
and run. So when you are feeling that buzz, and it's like, it is generally like a motor, in your mind, that won't turn off.
Because you have that at night, don't you?
Yeah, like last night I didn't sleep until 2 a.m. and I had to get up at 8:30, you know, and like things like that, because I was going on to that, like when you have, it tends to happen when you know you've got something going on the next morning or the next day, you can't sleep. And it's very odd, because no matter what I do, I turn my phone off, like, you know, I do anything I can, but your mind, even if you're not thinking about that thing, your mind is fixated on that thing that you've got to do. And it's almost like your body wants to do that thing before it lets you rest. And because you know it's happening, you can't rest. And I found that out the past like year. I think that like before college days, I found it really hard to sleep because I knew I had to do something. I knew I had to get up. I knew I had to do this. And it's the same with anything else. Like it's like with Christmas. Like that's why I struggled so much with sleep and Christmas. It wasn't just because I was an excited little kid. I mean that was a big part of it, but it was also, you know, my ADHD affected that as well. So sleep is a big one with that. Yeah.
You have got sleep medication.
Sleep medication, but I don't like to take it very often because when I take it too often, it doesn't work.
Right.
Or I get too sleepy during the day. So you do have to kind of see what works best for you. I found putting on a film in the background a good way to fall asleep because something's still going on. I can't sleep without. I can't sleep in total silence either. I've learnt that as well. Because if I don't have any noise, then my head's too loud.
Yeah.
Because again, it is like a motor. You've just got thoughts going across your head 24/7, and it doesn't stop. And no matter what, you can't stop it. Like you can do something about it, but it will still be lingering for quite a while. But yeah, that's about sleep and eating. I found. I was going to say it never really affected me as a kid, but I guess like
you've had
textures and
stuff.
stuff.
Food phobias.
Yeah, but whole like textures and stuff like that has been quite a big thing for me. And
which is quite an autistic trait as well, isn't it?
I'm going on. Wait a minute. Yeah, the whole eating aspect. Again, I know I say this a lot, but it generally does mature as you mature. So at the moment, some days I'm not hungry at all. I don't want to eat anything, and then other days I want to eat everything in front of me. It all very much depends on the day, what's happening. If you've got too much to do, I probably wouldn't eat because I'm too overwhelmed by the things I've got to do, or I'm too distracted by the things I've got to do. And it's the same with basic needs. I found like if I've got a load of assignment work and I'm fixated on that assignment work, I won't go to the toilet for about 5 hours. I won't drink for about 5 hours. You forget. And it's not that we're being unhygienic or we're like, you know, just completely ignoring our basic needs. It's just the fact that we are too distracted and our mind will only let us focus on that one thing. Unless someone goes, you need to drink, you need to go to the toilet, or like you need to drink, or you need to get up because you've been sat there for about 5 hours. We won't, because our brain won't let us do anything else. It's generally like someone's glued us to the seat and being like, you're doing
Stay
that,
there.
you can't do anything else, that's all you've got to do. And another big thing as well that I've realised is that the difference is finding when I'm being lazy and when I'm struggling. Because, don't get me wrong, there are days where I just lay in bed and I am being lazy. But there are other days when I've got too much on my mind, too much to do, you know, too much, just too much going on in general that I physically cannot do anything. I've tried writing lists. I've got a few other ways that I've still got to try, but I think that is one of the hardest things I'm struggling with at the moment is, you know, battling with my mind and getting up, doing the things that I need to do, but when there is too much to do, I generally can't, and it gets a lot, and it's frustrating because you can't do the things that you need to do, but it's like you're physically glued to your bed or like your comfort place, because at the moment my room's my comfort place, and if I leave that, some days I feel like I'm generally going to die. I know it sounds very over dramatic, but that is what my brain makes me think, because if I've got too much to do and I leave the room, nope, that's the end of it, like you're going to die, like, you know, all this, all that, and it's so mentally draining, because you've got a whole battle going on, like one side being like, you've got all this to do, you need to do it, and then another side being like, I can't, like, just stay in bed. So that's a big thing going on, I think, and that's the biggest thing I'm struggling with at the moment. And I don't think enough people talk about it, because when I first spoke to you about it, I think you were a bit confused about it, because it is a weird concept, and you know, this is where the whole complex of ADHD does come from, and this is where so many different sides come from. But yeah, you know, I mean, I'm still learning about it too. It's not just
of course.
But so that kind of leads into motivation. You know, like the whole thing that I just spoke about. That's basically to do with motivation. Or if you've got too much motivation, you know, you'll probably strive through the day, but you'll burn out, or like recently, as you've probably seen on the other vlogs, I got quite ill. That is from being burnt out and being too exhausted from doing too much. And it's just finding that balance. But yeah. And like Mum was saying, some things that I'm talking about leads into autism. A lot of children first get tested for autism because ADHD and autism have very similar symptoms and attributes, but there are a couple aspects that do separate them. Like mine was being socially interactive. That's where it separated it.
Yeah, when you were a child.
Yeah, and it's, you know, they are very similar things. But yeah, with school, it's hard because a lot of kids still nowadays make fun of people who are like, you know,
different,
do have special needs and things like that. ADHD is like nothing now. Like if you tell someone you've got it, they're like, oh, fair enough.
It's very common,
but
isn't it?
With autism and things like that, people still find it weird. They make fun of people. It's all because it's different and they can't cope with it and whatever.
They don't understand it.
It's horrible, but you know, kids are kids, aren't they? I guess. But yeah, at school, you know, I struggled because the teachers were like adamant that I had nothing, you know, going on.
You had lots of extra support though, in like you were taken out, weren't you, for interactions and different lessons.
When?
In primary school.
Primary school, yeah. Secondary school, I'm more like...
It was more like get on with it.
Get secondary school.
Well, we did, before Poppy started secondary school, I knew that she would struggle. So I went up there and spoke to the SEN department myself, because they are only interested in the children that are statemented because they get extra money for them. So those children, they're interested in. The children like Poppy that haven't got a statement, they're not interested in. So I went up and made sure she had a SENCO, which is a special educational needs coordinator, and we made a plan. I could have got that out of the filing cabinet, I've still got that, of what she needs, or what she needed then, and different aspects about her learning and her emotional, her social self, you know. And so all the teachers had a copy of it. Whether they read it or not, probably not. So, you know, I tried to put things into place for her so that she wouldn't fall. And then I had monthly meetings with the Senko. But like I say, they were never really interested properly because she wasn't statemented. And we did try and get you a statement at secondary school as well, and they were like, no. They went to what's the word? Where they watch you.
Assess.
Yeah, but there was another word I was looking for, but I can't remember it. Yeah, so they went to see Poppy at school, but they said no, she's not going to get a statement. And it wasn't like we say until we went to college. She went to college and they were like,
college is so much better for it. Like, I literally, all my tutors, I talked about the class, and I was like, I really struggle, especially because a lot of my lessons are 2 or 3 hours.
It's a long time.
It is quite a long time. Especially when you've got to listen that whole time, when they're lectures and things like that. So I took them out of the class and I was like, look, I have this. I really struggle with concentrating for a long period of time, because after like an hour I can just not listen. And it's not that I'm trying to be rude or anything, it's just that it's like my body shuts down.
To be honest, I think that's quite common, even if you haven't got ADHD, to
but
struggle with listening for more than an hour.
Yeah, but they just told me that I can leave and go on a walk and just come back whenever I need to. Same in my maths class, it's really helpful. He knows, and I can just go out on a walk.
And they try and sit you near the front, don't they, as well?
Yeah, I mean, I find it's different for everyone, and I think it's better now that I'm older. It probably is different when I was younger, but I find it's very helpful to actually sit with friends rather than on my own, because I think it's a very difficult thing when you have ADHD. Is people think, no, you need to be on your own, no distractions. That's not the case. When I'm on my own, I'm like, stuff this. Like, there's no point in this, and I'll find other things to distract myself. When I'm with my friends, like Lily, I usually sit with in maths class. We'll help each other with the answers. Like, sometimes we'll have little competitions to actually be able to like want to do the work, and you know, little things like that. It really helps. And when you're on your own with ADHD, I think it just makes you that you have no motivation. Whereas with the right friends who actually do push you and be like, oh, what's this, what's that, you know, that really helps. And I kind of spoke about emotions earlier, but honestly, I think this past year has been like the worst thing with my ADHD is my emotions. I have a therapist, and I spoke to her quite a bit about my emotions, because like I said, it's something that I really struggle with this past year. And I told her it just feels like I'm a robot that like is being controlled by someone else. It's like someone else has the remote and I'm being controlled like that way.
It's not very nice, is it?
No, because it's hard to see you hurt people that you love as well. Like, when you can't control your emotions and you hurt the people around you, I think that's when it is a bit of a slap in the face to yourself, and it's like, oh, like, I want to help myself and I'm trying to as best as I can, but like, you know, I don't want to be someone that will upset people or, you know, do anything wrong, but at the same time there are generally some times when I just cannot control it. And I found because I have this therapist, I found it a bit easier, but before I took out a lot of my emotions on people that weren't the issue. And it's not fair. I know it's not fair, but you know, that was something that I had to think about and something that I had to work on. It's just a lot. I think, you know, the whole mental battle with ADHD is so difficult, and there's so much going on in your mind, and I think it's frustrating anyway that no one can see that. And I think
invisible illness.
Yeah, but I think when someone,
I know that feeling.
yeah, well, I think when, you know, when you're a teenager as well, is a lot of people just think that you're just being, like a teenager.
They expect you to be a certain way, yeah.
They expect you to be a certain way, and when you fall into that bracket of like being grumpy and everything, it's like, no, like I genuinely want to, like I want to be happy, I want to be smiley and cheery, but some days I just generally cannot do it. And some days it does feel like you're just putting on a smile.
But I also think the medication has the side effects of
medication has a big side effect of emotions and mental health. Because there was a point where I was practically borderline depressed, I think, before I went into therapy, and it does get a bit taken used. It's taken me nearly 2 years, I think, to get used to this. Nearly a year to get used to this medication. But I think I'm getting there gradually. I'm starting to feel a bit more happier and everything with it. But it is just the fact. It's like, it's like all of a sudden you get this on switch and you're off. It's like, the way I see it, ADHD and medication is you're like a wound up toy. Your whole life you've been wound up, you're going round and round and round, and all of a sudden someone picks you up and stops. That is how the medication feels. When you take that medication, you're stopped all of a sudden. You run out. It's going from...
And it's trying to deal with that.
It's going from full on, go, and then stop. Just like that. And it's difficult to process that and to deal with that. Because you're practically becoming a whole new person with this medication. As you get older, you're not always going to be as hyperactive as you are as a child.
No.
But with ADHD, you will still be hyperactive.
But you've just got to do it in a different way. But
it's just doing it in a different way. And, it's just understanding. I think my biggest thing is understanding when to say sorry to people as well. Because, I can blame my ADHD all I like, but I still hurt someone, and that's not their fault.
You also have so many fiddle toys, don't you?
Yeah.
Like if we go out, say if we went to the theatre or anywhere like that I know that we're going to be sitting for, or if we go to a show, I make sure that I have some fiddle toys in my bag for Poppy. Because I know that it's going to be hard to sit still for that. It's hard for me, pain-wise, but it's hard for Poppy with, wanting to do something. And also the anxiety. I was going to talk about anxiety as well, because that's another thing, isn't it, that comes into the ADHD. But yeah, she's always, since she was a tiny little girl, she's always had fiddle toys, always. And we just keep adding to them, don't we? Every time we're out, we think, there's another fiddle toy we have, or Poppy will send me one and say, I like the look of this one, and I get it, and we put it in her box. So that's a really good tip. Even as an adult, you can have a fiddle toy in your pocket and no one's going to know it's there, but you can use it,
Because like Christmas is such a good example for ADHD.
Sorry about the train noise, by the way.
I love Christmas.
Yeah.
I always have, I always will.
Like a mum.
But I can't deal with the social aspect at the moment.
Yeah.
The past 2 years has been really difficult for me with the social aspect. And I think Mum made this Christmas survival box.
An ADHD survival box.
And it really helped, just being able to sit up the table for a little bit longer. Because when I was younger, I used to eat my food, eat my pudding, then I'll be allowed to go down.
Yeah.
But I can't do that as an adult.
We could, but it'd be a bit
rude.
Yeah.
So it's finding these ways, and like you said, anxiety. Anxiety is really big with ADHD. It's like they're best friends. I never really had social anxiety. I was always quite a sociable person.
Yeah, you have always been very sociable.
I still think I'm quite sociable. I will happily go up to someone and talk to them. But there are certain days and certain times when, if my social battery's gone, it's non-existent, that's when I shut down and I can't talk to anyone or anyone new. And I think that's when social anxiety comes in, because also ADHD makes you overthink so much. And you know, you think, what if you do something wrong? What if you say the wrong thing? What's this? What's that? Like, you know, what if they think this of you? What if that? There's so many things going around your head that you just physically cannot talk to them anymore.
Yeah.
And it's the same with anxiety and like planning and going on trips. Even as a young kid, I needed to know exact times, exact locations, exact.
I used
like,
to make
threats.
social stories for you, didn't I?
Yeah, because I just needed to know what was happening.
Yeah.
Exact time.
In your head.
You know, I needed to know. I couldn't be surprised.
What was happening next?
There were some points as well, like if we planned to go to dinner somewhere at a certain restaurant, but we changed plans, Do
you remember that time? There was one time as well when I'll always remember it. We went out for someone's, but I think it was Holly's birthday, and Poppy had helped me make her cake.
Oh yeah.
And she thought we were having cake. Was it back at Nan's?
Oh, yeah.
Or no, at the table or something. The plans changed anyway, and she couldn't deal with it, and she rushed off to the toilet and was in a right state, and I knew I just had to go and calm her down. And that was when you were around 10, something like that, weren't you? But I knew I had to calm her down and say, it's okay, the plan's changed, but it's okay, we're still going to do the cake. So it was just reassuring her that I know this is what was in your head and this was what was going to happen, but this is what's going to happen now.
I think that's the biggest anxiety that comes with it, because when something changes, it gets too much. And it's so frustrating. I understand it's no one's fault, but for me it's so frustrating when other people don't understand that. I'm lucky that Mum does, but like, you know, when you're out with the family or something. Yeah,
they sometimes, you know, other family and friends won't understand it.
And then I feel like, because now as well, I'm not 10 anymore, I can't rush to the bathroom and go have a meltdown.
We could, but...
So, you know, I just kind of have to silently sit there being like, oh my god, like this is happening. And then but the thing is that there's another part of my brain being like, probably don't be stupid, like it's just this thing. There's still this whole thing being like, no, I can't deal with it, like I have to be happy because it's a happy day, but like, I can't be because it's, you know, we've planned this, now it's changed, like, you know. And this whole sense, I honestly, so many times my brain just like thinks that something bad's gonna happen because something's not going to plan. You know.
But anyway, I think that's given everyone quite a lot of information. I wanted to film this because I've been asked quite a few times by different people in the comments on my vlogs. They knew that Poppy had ADHD, or we'd mentioned it or something, and they said, oh, could you please make a video, and we'd like to learn a bit more about it. So, or they think they might have it, or I don't know, or they might think someone they've, you know, the first port of call is if you think you or someone else has it, is to go to your GP, and then they refer you on from there. So, thank you for watching our video. You can leave a nice comment by all means. Hit the thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't done already. And I hope you've enjoyed this Wednesday segment. Take care from us, and we'll see you, oh, my foot's gone dead, on Saturday for the weekly. Bye.